You're listening to PumaPodcast.
The Philippines is the ninth most dangerous place in the world to be a journalist. That's according to a yearly index produced by the Committee to Protect Journalists, a prominent media watchdog. In the 2024 edition of the committee's Impunity Index, we trail mostly behind places ravaged by active conflict, including Palestine, Haiti, and Syria. Still, there was a time when things were worse. We were ranked the second-deadliest place in the world for journalists, following a crime so heinous it was at the time the single deadliest event for reporters ever recorded by the committee. I'm talking about the Maguindanao massacre. This November 23, 2024, will mark its 15th anniversary. What you're about to hear is a snippet of an entire season covering the massacre, created by Inquirer and powered by PumaPodcast. I'm Bella Perez Rubio, and you're listening to Teka Teka.
In 2014, 5 years after the Maguindanao massacre, the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines and creative agency BBDO Guerrero led the creation of an art installation at the Bantayog ng Mga Bayani in Quezon City. There, artist Leroy New recreated the scene of the massacre, crafting the victims out of newspapers. The choice in medium was a deliberate one, a reference to the journalists who were killed, and also to the fact that as early as then, the issue seemed to be disappearing. This is Super Evil, A Beautiful Place to Die, an Inquirer podcast powered by PumaPodcast. I'm your host, Pam Pastor. Three years after the massacre, they carried cardboard caskets, 58 of them, to represent each victim who was brutally slayed. Over the years, relatives of the victims and members of the media have shown many ways of remembering. They marched, carrying banners with the words, "Help us find justice." They wore black. They wore armbands. They wore shirts that read, "Stop the killings," and "Impunity now." They gave interviews, so many they could no longer count them. They went back to the crime scene, they spoke into mics, they lit candles, so many candles. They held up pictures of their loved ones, they shed tears. They relived their most painful days again and again and again. They've been tireless because they know we are so quick to forget.
Remembrance is a very difficult thing.
This is the voice of Nonoy Espina. At the time of the massacre, he was president of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines. From day one, he was there, assisting the family members of the journalists who died on that horrible day. And his was a constant voice of support in their pursuit of justice.
I really don't blame people for not remembering that much. We all have our problems, we all have our concerns. Yung sinasabi na sana ay manatili yung aral ng mga ganitong kaganapan. Di lamang yung massacre. Marami pa eh. Patuloy yung patayan. Siguro, kaya paulit-ulit itong nagaganap. Kasi hindi naman tayo natututo sa mga aral na mapupulot sana natin. Kaya nga, kung titingnan natin, kaya siguro nagmamalakas loob ulit na patahimikin tayo, ang media, dahil parang binaliwala natin ang mga aral ng nakaraan na nangibabaw na sana tayo at nabawi natin yung kinitil sa ating kalayaan sa pamamayan. Pero parang nakalimutan natin. Kaya ngayon, this is what's happening.
Nonoy Espina died in July 2021.
But the things he fought so fervently for live on. #Fight for 58. #Keep the story alive. never forget. We know how dangerous things get when we forget. It is this fickle remembrance that allows the Ampatuans to still rule over parts of Maguindanao despite their record of impunity. It is this fickle remembrance that allows so many of the perpetrators to still be at large, with some of them even holding government seats. It's what gives people with close ties to the worst and most horrifying parts of our history the gall to run for positions of power. It's what allows those who have wronged us, even those we have ousted, to weasel their way back in. It's what makes cunning revisionists think they can erase decades of history, and we wouldn't do anything about it. And most of all, it is this fickle remembrance that gives Bongbong Marcos, son of dictator Ferdinand Marcos, and politician with an unimpressive track record, the audacity to run for the highest seat in the country. And to this we say, never forget. Never forget the Maguindanao massacre and the 58 who died just because one family refused to give up their power. Never forget martial law, the golden age, sure, of corruption, exploitation, and human rights abuses. Never forget the thousands locked up, tortured, killed, and disappeared. Never forget the billions stolen. Never forget how your leaders responded to the pandemic, the belligerent incompetence, the theft amidst suffering, the embarrassment of errors, that goddamn dolomite, the fact that the Filipino people and their well-being have never been the priority. Never forget, or else the country, and you, and your children, and your children's children will pay for it over and over again.
The prosecution, having established the guilt beyond reasonable doubt of the following accused who are found to have acted as principal, namely Datu Andal Unsay Ampatuan Jr., Datu Anwar Sajid Datu Ulo Ampatuan, Datu Anwar Datu EP Ampatuan Jr., Police Inspector Saudi Muhammad, Datu Zaldi Ampatuan, Police Chief Inspector Sukarno Digay.
That was a snippet of Super Evil, A Beautiful Place to Die, an Inquirer podcast powered by PumaPodcast. If you'd like to hear the rest of it, we'll leave a link for you in the show notes. Super Evil was hosted and written by Pam Pastor, produced by Trisha Aquino, and edited by Presh Capistrano. This updated version of this episode was put together with the help of Pidoy Blanco and Jill Caro. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. Thanks for listening.